support tool for all learners. You may have heard of it in the past called ReadWrite Gold. And the district, it's super exciting. They have purchased this for all students and staff. So you have access to this for your students through your Google Chrome browser. And again, my name is Kathleen Receiver, and this is Cara Barella. All right, so what exactly is Read and Write? Some people don't really know what this toolbar is. It is a literacy support toolbar, and it's designed to help students and adults with their reading, writing, study, and research support. So some people ask, well, if my student in my class gets a reader on the K-Prep, can they use this Read and Write toolbar for that? And the answer is no, they wouldn't use this exact toolbar. However, if it is in their IEP to have a reader and a toolbar support, and they are using this Read and Write toolbar all year long, the building, the back at the school can help you set up the K-Prep toolbar. So K-Prep, they actually have a toolbar that students use that will read to them. So yes, it's possible to do that for the K-Prep, but you wouldn't use the Read and Write toolbar. So I like to point that out. There is a Read and Write Google extension. There's also a Read and Write iPad app, and both of these have already been pushed out to your devices. So if your students or you sign in to your Google Chrome browser, you will see those extensions. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today. So the first thing that I want to make sure that you understand is kind of the boring stuff, but it's important, and Cara will let you know this, that you have to model this for your students. So once your students sign into the Chromebook, they're going to have to give some permissions in order for Read and Write to work. So the first thing is you have to make sure you are using the Chrome browser. If you're using a Chromebook, perfect, you don't have to worry about that. But if you're on a PC or a Mac, and you want to use the Google extension, you must use the Google Chrome browser. Secondly, you want to make sure that you are logged in with your JCPS account. If you're logged in with a personal Gmail account, you will not have, and your students won't have, these features. So make sure that you've done those things, and then you will have to go through and give permission. So the students will do the same. They will click on their email address, and then this box will pop up, and they're going to click on Allow the first time that they use it. And if there's ever a big update, it may prompt them to do this again. One big question, and this presentation will be in the, I'm sorry about that. This presentation will be in the notes on our YouTube channel, so you can have all this information. But teacher access, you must fill out this form if you are a JCPS teacher and you want to have full access. So to do that, you would just fill in the information. You can list myself, Kathleen Receiver, as the district administrator for Read and Write, and then you click submit. Once you do that, in about 24 to 48 hours, you will have the full access to that. And what I'm gonna do right now, I don't know, let's see. If I click here, I'm gonna show. Okay, here we go. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so another thing that Cara and I realized this week when we were practicing is you must make sure that the Read and Write is turned on in your browser. So for many of you, you may notice that it's there, but you don't see, it's not working. Something's not working. So if you go to your little gray puzzle piece and click on that, you will see a bunch of pins. And you want to make sure, like down at the bottom, you'll see screenshot reader and text help reader. You want to make sure that pin is blue. If those are not blue, it's not going to work for you when you go to use it. And the same thing for your students. Everything I'm telling you today, you want to make sure that your students do the exact same thing. And the last thing is when tools are being used on the toolbar, they're going to be underlined in purple, and we will show you that in a moment. All right, so Cara, like I said, I'm going to kind of drop out of this presentation and go live a little bit. It's just a little bit easier. But the Check It tool is the first one that we're going to talk about once I close out of here. There we go. All right, so when you're in a Google slide presentation or a Google Doc, you are able to use this toolbar. And up here in the far right, you'll see those extensions. I have my ReadWrite, a little bird, which is called the screenshot reader, and then that PDF toolbar. Earlier, Cara couldn't find that, so we had to go to her puzzle piece, like I said, and make sure it was blue and turned on. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Kathleen. I was just going to say the importance of making sure that all of your permissions are on too with those. So if you go into your permission settings, making sure that you're allowing it to read your stuff. And so that way you can use it. And that way it's also pinned and turned on. So you just go to manage extensions from there and then make sure you're allowing all those permissions, because the PDF reader will not work unless you allow it to happen.
Yes, and that's perfect example. As adults, we may do that, but our students, so great troubleshooting here. If there's something they can't access it, you want to make sure that they've allowed. And you can get to that by those three little dots and manage extensions. Good point. All right, here. Okay, so I'm in this Google slide right now. And if I click on Read and Write, you can see that my toolbar pops up. And the first tool that I want to talk about is Check It. Check It is like a spell check is what it does basically, but you can see it's not here. So depending if you're using a Google slide or a Google Doc, you may have a few tools that don't show up. So right here, you can see the little circle with the check mark. When I click on that, it turns purple. So that's telling me that it's ready to spell check my document. Here you can see there's purple lines, which what a great color they chose to use. Underneath words, sometimes it will not, if you have, some students like to put a bunch of extra spaces. My daughter does this all the time in between words. It does not catch that, but it will catch the spellings. So that is your Check It tool. And again, not on the slides, just on the doc. Do you have anything? Have you used that yet with your kids, Cara?
I have not used it yet, but my kids use it themselves. So although I have not pointed it out that tool, they will use it themselves because like students want to do, they want to see all the cool features that are on their Chromebook. So a lot of your students may even know about Read and Write, and you may not even know that they know, but they've already checked it out. So they also could be kind of the teachers in this aspect, and they're able to show you what they already know. But I know that using Check It is a huge thing for them, especially through a Chromebook, and virtually we can't teach them all of the grammar that we need to, but the Check It tool helps with the things that we can't check while we're face-to-face usually.
Good point, good point. And also, so for teachers that may not be as comfortable or they don't know a lot about ReadWrite, just like Cara said, I would guarantee that a lot of your students have already seen that little purple RW and they want to see what it is. So they've checked it out and they very well could be using it. So good point. The next tool that I want to show you is the dictionary and the picture dictionary. So those are here in the slides and they are in the Google Doc as well. And what happens when I click on the dictionary tool, if I have selected text, it will give me the definition. So I'm going to go over, because I have text already pulled up here, and I'm going to select, I don't know what cloth is. Click on cloth and click on the dictionary. So it gives me the noun of that and the definition, and it tells me that it's a noun. If the students click on the play button,
noun, a type of fabric that is woven or knitted,
it will read it to them. So that's awesome as well. And the other thing that is right next to it is the picture dictionary. So it does just what it says. If the students select a word, you can double click on a word and click on the picture dictionary. It will read it to them.
Cloth.
And it gives them the picture. The other thing they can do with that picture on a slide, I believe whoops, it just went to, oh, funny, it went to Juanita. They can click on it and drag it into their document. So that's the dictionary and the picture dictionary. Pretty self-explanatory there. I know my students, when I use this with them, they like to drag the pictures, the clip art images it gave them into their presentations.
Yes.
The next one is the biggest one. It's Read and Write. It's the reading tool. So we're going to take a few minutes to talk about these. Not only can you use Read and Write on the Google Slides, but you can also use it in a Google Doc and on the web, on a website. So obviously the play button will play the text. You have pause and stop. And if I go over here to this website and I select the text and click on my little read-write icon here, and I can press play, and it's going to read. It's going to read the text that I selected. If students do not click on text and they just press play, sometimes it will go through and read every single thing on the page, or like right now, it doesn't do anything. So they need to make sure they're selecting what exactly it is they want ReadWrite to read. Now, if it's reading too fast for them, there are settings that you can go through with your kids, and this is individual setting for each child. And they would do that by clicking on these three little dots. So if you don't know this already, anytime you see three dots, there's normally a menu behind it. So just like with the Google Chrome browser, these three dots are horizontal. If I click on the three dots and go to options, here I can choose my voice if I want Ava to read to me, or there's also a US Tom if someone would rather have the male voice, you can do that as well. And let's see, a lot of these say offline because you have to install them. So we're not going to go through that today, but you can change the different voices to different people. You can also change the speed. So if you wanted to slow down, going too fast, you can slow down here. These boxes, if for some students, and when I taught in reading, I didn't want them to have continuous reading on because they wouldn't pay attention. So I wanted to speak on the sentences for my younger students, my first graders, and they would have to actually click on the next sentence to have it be read to them. So that's an option, but you don't have to mess with any of these. And then you can press OK. So I did want to point out that those settings are there for you to look at. Did you want to add anything about the play or reading on the web or the Google Doc?
Yes, I was gonna say this tool is so awesome for your kids to use, especially virtually, because, you know, as a teacher and when you're teaching your students, you usually have the kids who maybe they don't know how to pronounce a word, or it looks a little weird and they're like, I've never seen that word before. Well, this tool is so awesome because virtually, if they're not right next to you, you're not working one-on-one with them, and they need help with a word, they can use this, even just highlighting a single word, and it will read it to them. So that way it will help them right then and there, as you can't help them right then and there.
Exactly. And I hope that this show helps others to realize that we have this available so they can use it. So like we said, just the play, pause, and stop is on the web, the Google Doc or slide, but there's also some other reading tools that you may not be aware of. One of them being the screenshot reader. And that's this little box with the arrow. Now over here, you also have the screenshot reader bird. And like I said, this has been pushed out. You have to have this on for this tool to work. So if you don't see it up in your toolbar, make sure you click on that puzzle piece. And this is, blue. The little pin is blue. So what the screenshot reader does is if you have text on a website, or I know many teachers love to use the Bitmoji Google Classrooms. If you have text on the website, like in a picture, students can't, the read and write tool will not read that. So for text, what the students can do is they can click on that, and it gives them a little plus sign, and then they're able to draw a little box around text. And then it will go through what's called OCR, and it will read it to them.
Your lessons will go. Pause it here. UE.
So that one's kind of small, but if it were larger, they'd be able to click on it and have that read to them. So keep that in mind with the Bitmoji Classroom. Some of your students may not be able to read that text, and then read and write can't read it because it's in a cute picture. So that can also be done on the web. If you go here, and I didn't know that this word was votes, I could select that word, and then it would read
1076.
Except for, I don't know why it said 1076, but it will read the word to them. You can see in this picture, it's kind of the poster she's holding, Votes for Women, is kind of bent a little bit. So when it's straight, it really does do that. All right. So we have those two reading tools. And the last one is the PDF reader tool. And this one's a little kind of special. in that whenever you use it, you can either read a PDF that's on the web or from your Google Drive. And this is something that Cara and this is where we realized, oh, she didn't have permission set or it pinned and it wasn't working for her. But also we realized the same for me. So whenever I open a PDF, and you can see this is from my Drive because there's a little Google Drive icon here. If you assign your students a passage that's a PDF from your Google Classroom, they may need help with reading it. One thing you can do is show them that when they open that up, there's a little open with here. So if it's saved in your Google Drive and you've given them access to view it, they're going to get this option and they need to click on open with read and write. So once I do that, it opens up the read and write PDF toolbar. And then I'm able to use that to read the text. So here I have the click to speak. When I click on that and it's purple, that means it's being in use. And what I can do is click on any word
Juanita
or
stared at the
sentence,
picture of the extraordinary.
and it'll read it for me. So that's my favorite tool to use. It's just easier than selecting a bunch of text and pressing play, in my opinion. But for others, they may not like it. So the click to speak,
The rainbow fence.
that's how that works. And I'm going to click on it again to make it go off. Or I can select text and press play. You can see that you also have the picture dictionary and the dictionary tool here as well. So you can use either one of those. And you also have what else? Oh, you have the screenshot reader. So again, if there was a text like right here with reading A to Z, I can't select that. So I could click on the screenshot reader, take a screenshot, and then it'll read that to me.
Benchmark passage.
That's weird that did it in Tom's voice and not Ava's, but that's okay. So the next one is the translator. And then you also have the highlighter tool, which isn't showing up for this PDF, and the screen masking. So the bunch of different tools that you can use here. And we're going to talk about those in a second. If a child just goes to a PDF from a website, notice how you have the same tools, but these are not blocked out. So they can use these as well. The reason that they are not usable here is because I'm not the owner of this document. Cara is actually the owner of this document. So because she didn't give me edit access to it, I can't use these tools. But notice whenever I'm opening a PDF from the web, or if I opened one myself, these tools are available. So I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out. If you wonder why some of the tools aren't working or your students don't have access to them, that's an important thing to know. Did you have anything to add about that, Cara?
I was going to say, even though I'm the owner, so if I were to want to give Kathleen access or my students access, you can always give them editing rights and make a copy for each of them in Google Classroom too. And that'll give them those rights. So that way they are able to use the highlight or the text feature and all of those things as well.
You got it. And let's see, these are the differences here. So we have, and we'll talk about these few tools in a moment, but we have the text. So if I click on the typewriter, students are actually able to click anywhere in the document and they can type words. And those words, then they have the prediction tool here. They can talk and type, so they can speak into the microphone and it will type their words. They can change the font size as well as the color, or they can choose to delete that note.
And those notes are so awesome. The typewriter feature is so great for PDFs too, because when you're reading passages online, we're doing these things and we're asking students to find evidence in their text. And we'll talk a little bit more about the highlighting tool for that. But being able to write down their thoughts on the side, maybe stop, think, paraphrase as one of our Jan Richardson comprehension strategies. STP, stop, think, paraphrase. So stop, think, put that page on the PDF into your own words. What is it trying to tell you? Or just little notes along the way to help them remember what they're reading or what they're doing as well.
Exactly. I love that. So great example there on how you can use the typewriter. The next one is the push pin. So with the push pin, when you click on the push pin, this is great, again, for adding adding notes and pinning them so I can actually pin it to that spot. And then the next one is the freehand drawing. So students could actually, depending on what directions you gave, they change their color. So I can make it purple. They can actually draw or circle different parts of the text on the PDF. The same thing with the shapes drawing. They can use the shape tool to draw different shapes. And there's your eraser, your triangle and circle. They can even change the thickness if they or you wanted to mess with that. And then the last one is, I found this PDF online and maybe I want to save it to my drive. They give you the option to click here to save to your drive. So those are the different tools on the PDF reader. And I know that many of you are using PDF for your reading virtually. So this really is an important tool for your kiddos to know about and have access to.
And it's really awesome too, because you may think read and write, you may just associate it with reading. You're like, well, this is reading stuff. What if I'm a math teacher or I need to use it for something else? Well, that PDF tool, being able to hand write on that document, even if you're just presenting to your class, it's awesome so that your kids can see what you're drawing on the side for math or what you're circling and want to show them. And they can also use that tool when they want to show you work as well and want to show what they just did.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. So really important tools and strategies here for you to take back with you today. So great. The next one is the word prediction. So the little, I guess, glass ball here with the stars, that's the word prediction. And it does just what it says. My students loved this, and it really helped my struggling readers to get that confidence when they're writing. So when that is turned on, remember when I click on it, there's a purple line. It can be annoying if students don't want it on. So make sure they know to turn it back off. But as I'm typing, it does what it says. It's going to predict what I'm trying to say. And the more that you use it, the more it remembers how you write. And then the best part for my students is they're actually able to go over the word and read and hear what the word is.
Type.
So they know, okay, that's the word type. That's what I want. They're getting that confirmation on how to spell it and how it's pronounced. So that is the prediction tool. Have you used that, Cara? I forgot to ask you if you use that with your kids.
Yes. So the prediction tool is awesome because I know a lot, even without the prediction tool, a lot of kids want to use where they highlight the word and they want to see what other words they can use or what they can use next. So this prediction tool helps them kind of put their thoughts down and leads them to what they would want to write, even if they didn't know it, because sometimes our readers or any student struggle with what they want to write down and what you want them to write down. Maybe it's creative writing or any writing. They just don't know how to start. They don't know where to go from there. And this tool is awesome to help predict what they may want to do and helps them read it to them. So if they're like, well, I see a whole bunch of words on my screen, but I don't know what these words mean. Well, it says it for them. So that way, oh, I do know that word. That's how I write it. And it helps them that way as well.
Yes, exactly. And I want to point out, this isn't just for our primary or elementary teachers and students. There are some great ways that you can use this for middle and high school as well.
Oh, yes.
All right. So that's your word prediction. The next one, do you want to talk a little bit about the screen masking?
Yes, I love the screen masking. It is by far one of my favorite tools on Read and Write. And it's actually, as you saw on the screen, it is like a strip or a ruler you can use it as, and it uses one area to focus on as you drag your arrow through the screen. And the strip follows your cursor, and it's great for students who need help focusing. So virtually, it's harder to get them to focus, or maybe we're not by them, so it's harder to get them to focus with these things. Or if you're just presenting to your students, it's awesome to show certain sections that you only want them to see. And right now, as you're reading, you can see different words on the screen as well, but there's a setting you can always go to at the very top. You click that little wheel button and you can change the settings for it. So you can change the background color. Maybe the pink isn't their favorite. Maybe you want it to just be black so it's less distracting to them. And you can also change how dark and how light it is. If you want to focus on only one part of that screen, you can make it as dark as you want. So that way they can only focus on that one part. And that's an awesome tool for if you have tons of text on your document and you're like, well, I don't want my kids reading ahead of me. I want to focus on this one part. Well, this is an awesome tool because your kids will actually see all of this on their side when you're presenting your screen. So it's not just you seeing it. When you're sharing your screen, your kids will also see it as well. So it kind of helps them not jump ahead or be off task in that way. But I know I used these last year in my class. They're awesome little things. And I'm like, how can I use this virtually? Because you never know when a student needs this. And this screen masking is an awesome side tool to use, especially for kids who have trouble focusing, but maybe they have something with their eyes and you don't know it yet, because a lot of our students, it's hard to know with them and they're not going to tell you. And you may be thinking this person's excelling in this, but they're maybe not doing so well in reading or maybe math, and you don't know why. Well, this tool is awesome to use for that because it allows them to read left to right. It won't let them read up and down if you don't want them to. So that's a great tool for that as well.
Yep. And again, to turn it, well, and this, you'll find the students can move this around, so that will be fun for them.
Yes.
And move that around to get it out of your way. But just as a reminder, when you come back up, there's a purple line here. So to turn it off, you and the students would just click on that and then it goes away. So that's a really good tool. And I didn't even think about that until I was talking with Cara. You know, teachers, you are the experts. I've never taught during NTI before. And I thought, oh, wow, yeah, that would be, what an amazing tool for our kids virtually to know about.
Yes, and especially kids lose track all the time, especially if you're doing a running record or you're in math and they're looking all over the place. And it's hard to stay focused virtually for so long, but this screen masking tool helps them focus on that one part that you want them to, or if they're using it on their end like they can, it helps them focus on the one part that they need to without getting distracted. And I use it a lot in reading. It helps my kids. I don't usually black out all the words because, of course, my kids, I ask them why they wouldn't want that. And they tell me that, well, if I don't know what something means in a sentence, I want to be able to look around at the other sentences. So use those vocab strategy tools that they know to look at the other sentences and figure out what that word means. So this is a really awesome tool that helps them focus on different things.
And that's a good point too. Also picture clues, right? So if they have everything blacked out, they wouldn't be able to necessarily use those picture clues. So good point there. Okay, so the next one that we're going to talk about, just real briefly, whoops, let's turn this off here. So next to the screen masking, you have the talk and type. Talk and type does exactly what it says. Students speak and it will type what they are saying. But I don't know how much you really would want to use that because, let me turn off my prediction, under the tools in your Google Doc, if you didn't know, you have voice typing. So talk and type does the exact same thing as voice typing. Click on it, click on the microphone, and it will type whatever it is you are saying. So that's exactly the same thing that talk and type does. We do know that it will not type inside a Google slide. It only types down on the notes. So if you're using Google Slides, that it won't work. The talk and type won't work there. So just to let you know, if you were curious what that tool was. The next tool that we're going to talk about is the translator tool. So when you click on the translator tool, I do want to make sure everyone understands this translator tool is not meant to translate, entire documents of text. The purpose of the translator tool is for students, if you have EL students where Spanish is their native language and they don't know how to pronounce or say the word stared, whenever they select that word, they can press on play, and depending on the language setting, if it's Spanish or French or whatever it is, it will read that to them.
Mira fijamente.
So then they can understand, oh, that means stared at someone, looked at someone. So that's what the translator tool does. It will work on the web, Google Docs, or slides. And just a reminder, people many times get confused. It will not If I select all of this text, it will not translate it to Spanish for me.
And this is such an awesome tool too to use because we have such a big ESL and ELL population in JCPS. So even helping at home, this is such a big thing for our ESL and ELL populations that don't have that one-on-one help with us at all times. This can help them translate it in a better way when maybe they're working independently and they're not live with you. So this is such a great tool for that.
Exactly. Very important. And even for parents too, you know, some of the parents may need help using it. So that here in a little bit, we'll show you where you can get parent resources to share this with your parents. So I went to the 3 dots in the top right corner of my toolbar and went down to language. So this is where you can choose if you want the features, meaning all of the features, what language you want that in. So for most of us, we maybe English, but you may want to change it to Spanish or French. And then here is where you can change the language that the translator will do for you. So those are under the language tab here. Click cancel. Just let you know where those are so you can show your students. All right, my favorite tool is next. Cara, are you ready to talk about?
Oh, yes. It's one of my favorites too. So the next one is highlighting text. And I love this tool. You can use it in so many different ways. We said earlier when you want it to read to you. So if you want a document to read to you, you can use the other feature we pointed out before where it allows them to read, but also they can highlight whatever sentence they want to. So go ahead and every March people in the United States, and you can choose what color you want to highlight it with. Whichever one they want, whichever one you may want, but you can also hit the play button and it'll allow you to have it read as well.
Every March.
So select the text and hit play. Is that what you meant to say? Is
Yes.
that what you were saying? Yeah.
Yes, you highlight over it and then it'll let you do it that way.
In the United States celebrate the achievements and history of.
So it's highlighting and going through the text as it's read to them.
Yes. And then this allows for students to highlight evidence in stories that they read. We always want our students to highlight these important parts or the important, even in a math equation, in word problems. What is the important words that we need to know to figure out this word problem? Well, your students can highlight what they need to know and show you what they know just through highlighting and going over what different colors. Maybe they highlight in blue the most important things that they found as their evidence. And in yellow, they highlight things, well, this is kind of important. I might need to know this for later. So this is awesome to highlight as evidence as they read and they go through. And I use it in my reading groups, and independently, my kids use it as well. And they highlight unfamiliar words. So when we're in reading groups in person, it's so easy to check in with students and help them with the words that may be unfamiliar to them. But if they're highlighting words as they go, where they're like, I kind of know that, but I may have mispronounced it. I don't really know if I'm doing this right. But Ms. Borella is busy online with another student right now, so I'm going to wait until it's my turn, and then I'm going to go back to that word. And so then my students are able to share their screens, and I can see which word they're highlighting. Or if you're in a Google Doc, you can see what they're highlighting if you give each kid a color. So let's say Bob has the color yellow and Sally has the color pink. Well, if you're seeing yellow being highlighted, oh, well, you can see that Bob is highlighting things as he is going through as well. So that's a pretty cool feature. So that way you can help your students a little more personally, even though we are virtual.
Yes. And again, I would almost guarantee it that as soon as you show this to your students, they will figure out how to use it. So don't worry about all the different tools and things to do. I would maybe start with the play tool, and use that. And then you can go through and learn that tool. And then maybe next, the highlighter will be the next one you want to learn. Next to the highlights, you do have the little broom. So if students accidentally highlighted achievements, they can click on the broom to make it go away. make that highlight go away. The next thing is the collecting of the highlights. So if I click on the collect button right here, you can tell it which colors you want to select and highlight, or which highlights you want to select. Press OK, and it's going to dump these into a Google Doc. Now, I've already accepted this once, but maybe there was an update. No big deal. I'm going to click on my name and allow. And now what it's doing is it's taking all of those highlights and putting them into a Google Doc. And the best part is it cites the source right here of where I got those highlights from. And it tells me whose account did that, which is mine. So very powerful tool that you can use as well, as especially with research and writing. So I want to point that out.
Yes, it's great for evidence when you're asking kids to find different facts and research about something. Well, when they're highlighting it and maybe you're not with them while they're researching and they're like, well, this is a really great website I can use. At any age, they can use websites for research too. They highlight it and it dumps it into this document so you know what their evidence or what facts they found that are most important to their project or their reading. And then you can always see it as well, as long as they share it with you, and they can always turn that in on Google Classroom as well.
Exactly. And someone in the chat mentioned Shelby Miller. She mentioned that it's a super helpful tool for building the vocabulary with your ESL students.
Yes.
That's a great point too. Awesome. Okay. So that's the vocabulary highlighting tool. And let's see, go back here. All right. The next one that we're going to talk a little bit about is the practice reading aloud. And Cara, you want to talk about this and how you use it with your kids?
Yes. So just like the name suggests, the purpose of this tool is to allow students to practice reading any content out loud. This is so awesome. And I love this tool so much. And it's just to practice fluency, being able to read clearly, accurately, with appropriate expression. This allows your students to practice it on their own at home more than maybe in person. They're so used to practicing and reading with others, and at home, maybe they don't get that opportunity as much. Well, this tool is so awesome to still allow them to work on their fluency, or maybe those are maybe for the elementary students, they need to work on their fluency, but maybe for middle and high school, they need to work on practicing a speech. Maybe you're not with them to practice a speech and they want to show you it beforehand, but you don't have enough time. You're working with tons of groups. You're juggling all this stuff. Well, this tool is awesome for kids to even allow you to practice speech, fluency, any of those things. So I made a little thing on here. I put text on here of just a passage they may want to read. So once you highlight the passage, you're always going to have to highlight it first. So you're going to highlight it just like you would to get the practice reading aloud, because otherwise it doesn't know what you want to practice to read out loud. So that's a big thing. You always want to highlight whatever you want to read. You don't even have to highlight all of it. You can highlight maybe a sentence you want to practice. So you highlight it and then you go to that little button that looks like a student reading a book, and you're going to click on practice reading aloud. And it's going to open it up for you. And you always want to allow the microphone so that way you can use your microphone to practice reading out loud. And you get those same tools. You have the dictionary, you have the hover text, you have the screen masking, the translator. So those are also the tools that they get to use in the other read and write toolbar, but now it's just practicing reading out loud. And the right-hand side, it even tells you click the record button to get started and click stop when you finish. And you use the play button to listen to how
record button to get.
So it can also read to you. That's a good thing that you did do that though, Kathleen, is it will read to you as well. So if you, maybe a student wants to know how to say something accurately or with fluency or with expression, well, it will read it out loud to you first so you can kind of hear how it's supposed to be, and then you can have your turn to do it. So once you hit that microphone button, it'll record for you. It'll have you record what you say, and then you hit the stop button when you've finished recording. And then it'll let you re-listen to what you've said just to say, well, did I mess up in this part? What can I do better? Or students always need to listen to maybe how they're saying things. So that way, when we're talking, we're saying these things. but they're like, did I say that right? Did I do that right? Is that how it's supposed to sound? So always double checking their work, re-listening to what they're saying. And this tool is awesome. So, and then they can, I'll talk about that in a second, getting so excited about it. Then they can send it to their teacher as well. So they use that little airplane button and they can send it to you and share that with you so you can hear what they're using. So maybe you want to hear how they read a passage for reading. You're like, I want to listen to them read this, but we're running out of time. Well, they can use that and say it back to you and just send it to you. So that way you can still listen to them. Or even, like I said, when they're giving speeches or presentations, that's an awesome part. But when me and Kathleen were talking, we pointed out that a lot of times when kids are writing, they're writing and they're not double checking their work. And they're like, yeah, that sounds right. Well, if they were ever typing in a Google Doc, they're like, yeah, that sounds right. I don't need to double check if it sounds right. But sometimes in person, then we read it back to them or we have them read it out loud and they're like, oh man, that is not what I meant to say at all. That's not it. Oh no. Well, this tool is also helpful for them because it will read it to you. They can play around with it and see what they need to change and fix on it too, and talk back to you as well. They can just send you a voice recording. So maybe they're reading the passage out loud and they have to choose between which fits best in a sentence. So if they have 3 different options, which word would best fit? Well, they can say that word that they think is best fitting. And then that way you can grade it and sound and hear the sound that way too.
Awesome. So another really good tool for reading and using this virtually as with the other ones. So thank you for all.
Yes, it's awesome for our struggling readers and our ESL and ELL that need to have that practice, and maybe they're not getting it virtually enough, and you're sitting there like, I know these kids need to do more, but what can I do for them? There's not enough hours in the day, because I know I'm that way all the time. Well, this tool is awesome to have them practice reading out loud for anything and sending it to you to even listen to and show their work.
Yeah, and I know a lot of teachers say, it's so hard to schedule. I think you mentioned, 20 minutes, there are 20 or 25 different kids and some don't show up. So this is a great way for them to read and then they can send it to you for you to listen to. So thank you for sharing all that. So the last thing, we've shared a lot of tools with you today, and you can go back. You have the power of pause. This will be up on our YouTube channel, and you can go back and listen to the different tools to see how you can use them with your kids. And the very last thing, and probably one of the most important, is the last slide of this presentation. There's a playlist on our YouTube channel, which Matt will probably play here in a little bit for you after we're finished. There's also a one-pager. So this one-pager is great to get you started with using Read and Write. It has the link to the form for you to use and tells you the different steps of what you need to do to get started. So for you and for your kids, there's a folder full of student support. So you could give that to your kiddos, but there's also parent support here as well. A folder full of resources for how parents can help their students. And then lastly, you have your teacher support folder. So inside the teacher support, there's several different resources about each of the tools. And one of my favorites is this one right here. It's a guide for all the tools. It shows you what they can do and how to access them. So just a real quick couple pages here for teachers, quick reference guide for you, because I know there are a lot of tools. And this earlier we did a presentation on the intro of how to use it. And then we brought Cara on today to give you some real examples of use in the classroom. So know that those resources are there for you. And if you have any questions about Read and Write, you can contact myself and I will do my best to help you with those.